Hi, welcome to PN Recapped Mystery. Today we explain the movie called Knowing. Beware of spoilers, watch out and take care, and I hope you enjoy the video. The movie starts at an elementary school named William Dawes, in Lexington, Massachusetts, 1959. In the playground, we see Lucinda Embry gazing into the distance as though she has seen some devastating occasion. As she gazes, whispering sounds are heard behind the scenes. The teacher, Ms. Taylor, repeatedly instructs Lucinda to return into the class when the break time frame closes. During the class meeting, Miss Taylor lets the students know that as a celebration of the school's official opening day, the students will draw what they think what's to come will resemble, and place the outcomes in a time capsule. She lets them know this is Lucinda's thought. As they begin drawing, we see Lucinda in a daze, irately jotting apparently irregular numbers onto a sheet. Apparently the mysterious whispering voices are controlling Lucinda's contemplations and activities. As she gathers the students' work, Ms. Taylor should snatch the sheet from Lucinda because of her daze-like state. During the ceremony, we see a group accumulated as the time case is brought down into the school grounds. Somewhere far off we can see Lucinda alone and gazing at the procedures. A couple of moments later, Miss Taylor sees Lucinda gone from her spot, and her balloon floating off. This ignites a quest party for her. Cautioned by commotion coming from door to a school storage room, Ms. Taylor tracks down Lucinda inside, her fingers bloodied as she's scratched significantly more numbers into the wooden door. She is as yet crying and going about as though in a daze, before she asks Miss Taylor to make the whispering stop. The film then streaks forward to the current day 50 years later. We are acquainted with MIT professor John Kessler and his son Caleb at their home. John is cooking hot dogs for his son. They talk about the chance of keen life in space, and after dinner Caleb is in his room watching his beloved show about tigers. As John gets Caleb into bed, it's seen that Caleb believes John's view on life and space is attached to the unfortunate passing of Allison, John's wife and Caleb's mom. John kisses Caleb goodnight, and they go through a nightly ritual of involving communication via gestures for the expression, "you and me, together, everlastingly." Caleb is hearing debilitated and uses a listening device. After Caleb is sleeping, we see John drinking from a bottle of whiskey, and here we understand he is as yet adapting to the overwhelming loss of his wife. The following day we see John giving a lecture to his class about determinism. Determinism is accepting that all that occurs on the planet is brought about by something that occurred before it, and intentional circumstances and logical results. The other side is all that occurs in this world, even development, was generally arbitrary, inadvertent, and with practically no structure. When asked by a student what he trusts in, John answers, "ST simply occurs." After the lecture, he is conversing with his colleague Phil when he realizes he is missing Caleb's school's 50th year celebration, where they are opening a similar time capsule displayed toward the start of the movie. When he gets to the festival, he sees honored guest Miss Taylor giving a discourse, and afterward the capsule is opened. Ms. Taylor begins distributing the different pictures and drawings to the current students. As though by some coincidence, Ms. Taylor hands Lucinda's page of numbers to Caleb. As Caleb opens the letter and checks out it, he sees a peculiar-looking man somewhere out there wearing a raincoat, and begins to hear whispering voices in his mind. This shows that there is tie between young Caleb and Lucinda, as both can hear voices. Caleb takes the letter home. During dinner that evening, John sees the uncommon letter with numbers standing out of Caleb's backpack. Subsequent to acknowledging it was from the time capsule, he rebukes him for taking it, as it is still school property, and sends him to rest. A couple of seconds after the fact, when John goes to Caleb's space for his standard wrap-up, he sees Caleb watching old home recordings of Allison singing him to sleep. Rather than tucking him in, John shuts the door and starts drinking intensely. As he presents himself with a large number of beverages, he unintentionally overloads his cup and spills liquor all over. He goes to the kitchen to observe something to wipe up the wreck with when he sees that he put his cup over Lucinda's list. The upper left piece of the round mark left by the wet cup's base features a segment of numerals, 911,012,996. John investigates these numbers, which get his consideration. He strolls over to his blackboard and composes these numerals on it. After a couple of attempts of isolating them in various gathering mixes with no significance, he unexpectedly observes the initial 5 numbers are the date of the September 11, 2001 militant assault. Looking the event up on the internet, he finds that the 2,996 was the absolute number of casualties. Frightened, he composes the whole page of numbers onto the board, and with the assistance of the internet, he observes the number groupings appear to foresee the dates of each major devastating occasion of the beyond 50 years, in the sequential order in which they occur, alongside the body counts, including the besieging of the Pan Am trip over Lockerbie, the Oklahoma City bombarding, and Hurricane Katrina. There are a couple of gatherings of numbers left that are not surrounded and represented, implying that these numbers might foresee future occasions. Unexpectedly, John's look falls on the number arrangement 102,708 and drops his beverage with dismay. Obviously October 27, 2008 is the date of Allison's passing. He enlightens his colleague Phil concerning the numbers and is met with disparagement, and John stomps out of the office. Determined, John finds Miss Taylor and talks her at her home. He looks into Lucinda, and how she vanished, and how they thought that she is in the storeroom when she scratched numbers onto the door. Sadly, Ms. Taylor lets him know that Lucinda died some time back. John desires to get Miss Taylor to assist with supporting his hypothesis, yet it rapidly ends up being unmistakable that Miss Taylor, in her old age, has started experiencing short-term memory loss that would make her statement inconsistent. Later that afternoon we see Caleb playing soccer without anyone else in the front lawn. John is on the telephone attempting to chase down more leads, when a dark car loaded up with a few of the secretive-looking outsiders approaches Caleb. As the car draws near, Caleb begins to hear whispering sounds and thinks his portable hearing assistant is failing. One of the men connects of the vehicle window and hands Caleb a smooth dark stone. John sees this and surges outside, however the men leave. At his home, while looking into Lucinda's passing on the web, John is out of nowhere alarmed by his sister Grace, who is stressed over the way that he is as yet adapting to his wife's demise and the way in which he doesn't converse with their dad, who is a minister. She offers to babysit Caleb so he can continue a public activity. After a strained trade of words, John requests that she leave. That evening and over the night, John stays conscious, looking through the most recent TV news refreshes for any conceivable horrendous occasion that could be a piece of the leftover gatherings of numbers, as the following day is one of the last 3 dates recorded. One news update momentarily records disturbance of wireless satellite organizations because of sun-based flares. The following day John sleeps late and forgets to get his son from school. He calls Caleb and lets him know he is coming. While heading to get his son, John winds up stuck on a highway in heavy rain, because of a mishap. He telephones Phil to apologize for their gathering prior. He then, at that point, utilizes his truck's GPS system to attempt to track down a backup route, yet it shows that there are none. Out of nowhere he sees the current latitude/longitude organizes on the GPS system, and takes a gander at Lucinda's letter and notification similar gathering of numbers quickly following the arrangement that lists the day's date. All the uncircled gatherings of numbers, as he currently acknowledges, are the latitude and longitude coordinate areas of the calamities. He gets out his truck and approaches the mishap site. As he is conversing with the police, a plane comes pitching out of the sky and collides straightforwardly with the way of his truck prior to progressing forward to the fields close to the interstate, where it detonates. We next see a strong and upsetting succession of the result of the accident. John does what he can to help the survivors, large numbers of who are burning and in horrendous agony, as blasts are as yet going off, before rescue workers keep him down. At the point when he returns home, his sister is waiting for him with Caleb. He asks Grace not to let Caleb know what occurred. Behind the scenes, a TV news report records the loss of life from the plane accident at 81 individuals, and we can hear a reference to navigational breakdowns because of electromagnetic radiation. Caleb over and again asks him what occurred, yet John won't reply and Caleb stomps off crying. Sometime thereafter Phil comes to see John. Shown that the uncircled dates are latitude/longitude ranges, and realizing that John was at the site of the plane accident has seriously shaken Phil. John is sure that the numbers are an admonition for him, yet Phil contemplates whether they're alerts to remain away, in spite of John being vigorously busy with two significant catastrophes staying in the number grouping. Still, sometime thereafter, Caleb is stirred in his room by one of the outsiders, who focuses to the window. As Caleb goes to the window, he is welcomed by a horrifying sight, an awful woodland fire and many creatures being burned alive. As he shouts, John surges up to his room to comfort him, and afterward he sees the outsider again outside the house remaining by the trees. He endeavors to go up against him, however the man is gone when John gets outside. The following day, John and Caleb track down Diana Wayland and her daughter Abby. Diana is Lucinda's daughter. They are at a historical center when John involves Caleb as a ploy to begin a conversation with Diana. He welcomes her and Abby for beverages and they stroll to the restaurant. There John uncovers reality that in fact it wasn't a random meeting, however that he found her because of her mom in the page of numbers. He comes clean with her about the numbers, and needs her assistance. Irritated by this deception, Diana stomps off with Abby, giving just insignificant consideration as he attempts to tell her that he was at the plane accident the earlier day, and that tomorrow, 170 additional individuals will kick the bucket in New York City, and afterward 33 more on October 19. John argues that he needs to save his child, thinking Caleb is in danger, yet Diana says she can't help. Later on, John is at home when his consideration is gotten by a TV news caution of a possible militant assault in New York. Checking the number groupings in Lucinda's letter, he observes that the directions show the edge of Lafayette and Worth roads in Manhattan. With a desire to move quickly, he namelessly calls from a compensation telephone and advises the FBI to close off the area. The following day he has Grace babysit Caleb, and drives himself to New York on an individual mission to attempt to do what he can about the potential terrorist danger. At the point when he gets to the side of Lafayette and Worth, he sees it isn't closed off by the police. He furiously stands up to a cop, and afterward runs off to a close-by metro station to try not to be confined by the police, who start seeking after him. Accepting here an assault might happen, he begins filtering the region for any dubious action. As he strolls down the stage, he sees a dubious-looking man holding an enormous item under his coat. As their eyes meet, the man out of nowhere runs off, and John follows him, trusting him to be the danger, and a close-by cop sees them. The two of them get on the train just before it takes off, trailed by the police. As they both close to the front of the train, John begins cautioning individuals, especially a young pregnant lady, to clear the train at the following stop. The police then, at that point, get up to speed to them and attempts to capture John. After John argues his case that the man he was pursuing is the danger, the police then, at that point, change their thoughtfulness regarding the man. Terrified, the man drops what he was stowing away, a lot of DVDs he has stolen. We next see the tracks being inappropriately exchanged because of electrical breakdown, and this makes the train veer onto the wrong tracks and straight into the way of a stopped train at maximum speed. The train goes off the tracks and makes a way of death and annihilation as it tilts crazy through the crowded platform. After the accident, we see John seriously leaving the station alongside different survivors, shrouded in dust. Despite the fact that he couldn't keep the calamity from occurring, this occasion to John is the last confirmation that the numbers are intended to foresee past and future catastrophes. It likewise appears to demonstrate that for reasons unknown he is the divinely selected individual that found this. On the news reports later, a broadcaster says that the track breakdown is accepted to be connected with the very electrostatic blasts that call sympathetic to him. She remembers everything John said to her about the date of October 19. Lucinda used to discuss that date regularly, saying it was the day that Diana would pass on. They four drive to Lucinda's old trailer out in the center of the forest to track down more hints. As they drive, Diana peruses the mathematical rundown composed by her mom, and how Lucinda's anticipated date of Diana's passing has tormented her for her entire life. She additionally discusses thinking that she is dead body in the room. John imparts to her how Allison passed on. She died in a lodging fire, and when she passed on he was out toward the front of the house accomplishing yard work. He tells her that he generally accepted that people deeply in love have a psychic connection even when apart, however when she died he didn't felt anything, and to that end he currently has faith in the irregularity of things. At the point when they get to the trailer, they leave the resting kids in the truck and stroll inside. As they close to the front entryway, Diana is as yet perusing the mathematical rundown and stops. She says Abby now and again composed things in reverse and the last number on the rundown, 33, Diana accepts is really composed in reverse. In the main room John sees various news sections of debacles all over the planet stuck on the wall. At the furthest finish of the room he tracks down a drawing of Judgment Day with an image of an enormous splendid article in the center. Diana discusses how she was 9 when Lucinda passed on, and Lucinda generally discussed hearing voices whispering awful things to her. Lucinda moved out to the trailer to prepare, in spite of the fact that Diana never realized what for. Strolling into Lucinda's room, John sees a book of scriptures on the work area. As they are leaving the room, he staggers on something, and notification it's a smooth dark stone like the one Caleb got before. He looks under the bed and notification more shakes, then, at that point, takes a gander at the underside of the bed. Seeing some composition, he turns the bed to uncover the underside of the bed. It is covered wherever with the composition, everyone else the E from the last piece of the letter. John then, at that point, understands that the last expectation will influence everybody in the world. Now the secretive outsiders show up again and approach the truck, and we can hear the strange voices begin to show up. Caleb and Abby watch the puzzling men unite on the truck. At the point when Abby begins to open one of the doors, Caleb jams on the truck's horn. John and Diana rush to the truck. Abby specifies that the men were whispering to her and we understand that Abby, as well, has the gift to hear whispered voices. John gets his gun and runs into the timberland to face one of the men. As he enters a clearing, he sees the man stopping confronting away from him. He directs his gun at him and orders him turn around. The outsider does, and afterward opens his mouth as a splendid focusing light exudes from inside his body. This light blinds John and the outsider moves away. Back at home, Diana and John both say they accept bizarre men have been after them and their children for a long time. In the morning, Abby gives John the Judgment Day picture that was in the trailer. John sees that she had shaded in the sparkling article and the drawing and made it resemble the sun. This is when it suddenly dawns on John that the final event is related to the sun. They all drive to John's lab office, where he meets Phil. John notices to him about a hypothetical devastating sun-powered flare model they dealt with previously. John says that truth be told this model is of the Earth, and that this flare will annihilate all life in the world. He advises Phil to return home and spend time with his wife. As he leaves he educates Diana concerning the coming debacle, and she separates and says she needs to secure her daughter. The two of them concur that they will attempt to hang out this occasion by going to a few remote caves not known to public. Returning to John's place, they all scramble to accumulate garments and supplies to take with them. John pauses for a minute to call his dad on his cell phone. He enlightens him regarding the coming fiasco, and requests that he take his mom and both track down an underground haven. His dad denies, saying that he is prepared to kick the bucket assuming it's his time. The cell phone then, at that point, goes dead, clearly being impacted by the sun-based flares. As they are packing, John's musings return to the last part of Lucinda's list, and he understands that dissimilar to the past expectations, there were no directions. He then, at that point, recalls Miss Taylor's conversation about Lucinda scratching numbers onto the closet door. They all race to the school, much to Diana's rising frenzy, as John breaks into the school and advances toward the storage room. He tracks down the storage room yet sees the door has been covered up. He takes the door off its pivots and takes it back to his carport. Utilizing a warming firearm and scrubber John wildly attempts to track down the numbers, as Diana's frenzy ascends to breaking point. Figuring the sun-powered flare could occur without warning, Diana takes Abby and Caleb in her own vehicle and drives off to the caves, leaving John. When he observes the last arrangement of numbers, He keeps in touch with them down and heads out to his truck, however acknowledges they are totally gone. Entering the numbers into the GPS, he is stunned to observe that the directions highlight Lucinda's trailer. He takes off in his truck to track down them. John is able to reach Diana on her mobile phone, and he frantically attempts to persuade her to take the two children to Lucinda's trailer rather than the cave's gush enclosures, and Diana stops at a gas station. As she goes to the pay window, she sees the TV inside showing a crisis broadcast alert. The alarm cautions of the looming flare, and requests that everybody track down underground asylum. As she watches the caution, Caleb escapes the car and calls his father from a payphone. He is simply ready to let his father know that they are at a service station. As Caleb is talking, he is taken by the mysterious outsider, who gets in Diana's car and drives off with the two children. Seeing this, Diana pursues them in a close to insane state, and bounces into an inactive SUV at one of the siphons to give pursuit. During the pursuit she sees a few cars in front of her halted at a convergence. She steers into the contrary path, and as she passes through the intersection she is savagely sideswiped by a tremendous truck, making the SUV flip over and we see her oblivious. Then, John crashes into the gas station and finds the pay telephone Caleb utilized. He sees a similar smooth dark stone on top of the telephone. He asks the store agent that he saw a woman with two children and the representative lets him know the children were stolen. She gave pursuit. John takes off toward the pursuit, and he runs over the crossing point where Diana was hit. He strolls to the back of the ambulance where paramedics frantically attempt to revive her with no achievement. As they call her season of death, John sees it is simply past 12 p.m., implying that it is presently October 19th, the date of the last calamity and Diana's date of death anticipated by her mom. In the wake of holding her hand and saying a couple of conclusive splitting words, John heads out to Lucinda's trailer. When he arrives at the trailer he sees tire tracks heading out into the forest, and follows these tracks. When he gets to a clearing he sees the ground is canvassed in precisely the same dark smooth stones seen a few times in the movie. Struggling with his missing child, Caleb unexpectedly seems protected and quiet, holding a white bunny. He additionally tracks down Abby safe, likewise holding a hare, and she lets John know that they told her that her mom is currently in a protected spot. We currently understand that the motivation behind why the outsider took Caleb and Abby was on the grounds that Diana was not going to take them to Lucinda's trailer. Caleb lets his father know that the baffling outsiders are removing them, which means to a more secure spot away from the looming calamity, and they were the ones who conveyed the strange message so arrangements could be made. We then, at that point, see four of the puzzling outsiders remaining before them. We then, at that point, see an example of lights high in the sky, and afterward out of the mists a huge space apparatus arises. The base opens up and a colossal circle-like carrier is radiated to the ground. It is presently obvious that these baffling outsiders are creatures from another planet, and that they have come to save this family. As they prepare to move towards the circle, John unfortunately understands that the outsiders came to explicitly save Caleb and Abby, and not him. At first Caleb fights, however John persuades him that he will forever be with him, and that he should go with Abby to be saved. After a passionate farewell, Caleb and Abby stroll towards the sphere. As they do as such, the outsiders shed their human skins and uncover their actual outsider selves, bodies that radiate brilliant lights. John and Caleb offer a last sincere hint language trade of you and me, together, everlastingly. The circle returns towards the mother boat and takes off into space. As the boat departs the Earth, we notice many different ships likewise leaving, showing that numerous youngsters from around the world were additionally being saved. John implodes on the ground, crying. John is awoken the following day by a light rain and creepy orange sparkle in the sky from the sun-oriented flares. We see him passing through the city being annihilated by the moving toward flare, structures ablaze, rising temperatures, and individuals running in alarm all through the roads, with whatever they can convey. As he drives on he sees Phil holding his better half in the city. He goes to his folks' home, where Grace embraces him. He tells her Caleb is in a protected spot now. John goes to embrace his dad, Reverend Kessler, who advises him that this isn't the end. Effortlessness and Mrs. Kessler join John and Relevant Kessler in a hug and hold on to each other as the final massive solar flare incinerates and disintegrates everything in the city. The last shot of Earth is from space as it separates. We then see what gives off an impression of being the scene of a distant planet, loaded with odd colors, yet rich with vegetation. The spaceship we saw before shows up, and drops off young Caleb and Abby onto the surface with their pet bunnies prior to leaving. We see more spaceships show up to drop more kids, and the last shot is of Caleb and Abby running toward an immense and heavenly gleaming tree behind the scenes. To watch more explanations of these kinds of movies, click on the videos on your screen, and don't forget to let me know how you feel about today's video in the comments down below. Kindly like the video and subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon so you don't miss any new videos. Thanks for watching.